Patrick Dempsey had always been admired for his charm and charisma on screen, but few people knew how deeply sensitive and reflective he could be off camera. That evening, as he sat across from Captain Ibrahim Traoré in a quiet studio surrounded by cameras, he felt something shift inside him, something powerful, raw, and almost overwhelming. The conversation began with formality. Patrick had been invited to co-host a global podcast focused on leadership and courage, and Traoré was the guest of honor. Millions were already tuned in, curious about how a Hollywood actor and an African leader could find common ground. Patrick smiled politely as the introductions rolled, but the moment Traoré began to speak, the atmosphere changed. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight of truth that pierced through every distraction in the room. He spoke not about fame, politics, or personal power, but about dignity, justice, and the struggle of ordinary people. Every day, Traoré said, leaning slightly forward, my people fight to keep their land, their resources, their future. We are told that we are weak, that without the West we are nothing. But I tell you this, without Africa, the world would not breathe. Without Africa, the world would not eat. And without Africa, there is no future. Patrick felt his throat tighten. He had prepared scripted questions, but suddenly they seemed meaningless. He thought about the roles he had played, doctors saving lives, heroes rescuing others, men full of passion and determination. Yet, sitting there, he realized that Traoré was no actor. He was living the very essence of those roles. With no cameras, no director, no script, just truth. The audience could sense the tension in Patrick's face. His eyes glistened as he tried to respond, but Traoré continued, his words rolling with quiet intensity. They try to silence us. They call us radicals, rebels, dangerous. But what is dangerous about wanting freedom? What is dangerous about wanting to own the fruit of our labor? What is dangerous about telling our children that they have the right to dream? Patrick's vision blurred as tears welled up. He looked down, his hand brushing quickly across his cheek, hoping the cameras wouldn't linger too long. But they did. They captured the exact moment when a Hollywood star, admired by millions for fictional performances, was humbled by the raw courage of a man who lived in constant defiance of oppression. I don't even know what to say, Patrick whispered, his voice cracking slightly. What you're saying, it's more than powerful. It's necessary. And I feel ashamed, honestly. I've spent so much of my life surrounded by privilege, by stories that are written to entertain, while you are living a story that the world must hear. Traoré's gaze softened. For a moment, the warrior's fire in his eyes gave way to a quiet compassion. He reached across the table, not to shake hands as politicians often do, but simply to acknowledge the humanity between them. There is no shame in waking up, he said gently. The real shame is to see the truth and still close your eyes. You are here now. You are listening. That is already courage. Patrick swallowed hard, his chest heavy. He could hear the crew moving in the background, cameras adjusting, microphones catching every breath. But all he could focus on was the man before him, a man who had faced coups, threats, and endless pressure, yet still spoke with grace. The conversation turned deeper. Patrick asked about hope, how someone who had seen so much suffering could still believe in a brighter future. Traoré smiled faintly. Because I see it in the eyes of the children. When I walk through the villages, when I sit with the mothers, when I hear the songs of our young men and women, I know that no amount of oppression can kill hope. Hope is like fire. If you protect it, it spreads. And once it spreads, no army can put it out. Patrick's tears flowed more freely now, not out of sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of awe. He thought about his own children, about the world they would inherit. He thought about how little courage was required to live comfortably in Hollywood, and how much courage was demanded of those like Traoré, who stood against the tide of history with nothing but conviction. At one point, Patrick leaned back in his chair, visibly overcome. He pressed a hand to his face, taking a deep breath, his emotions transparent to everyone watching. Social media would later explode with clips of that exact moment, the actor's humanity shining through. You know, Patrick said finally, in Hollywood we tell stories to inspire people. But tonight, I feel like I'm sitting in the presence of a real story. one that has the power to change how people see the world. And I am so deeply moved, more than I can explain. Traoré nodded. Then share it. Use your voice, your platform, your influence. The world does not need more actors pretending to be heroes. It needs real people willing to stand with truth, no matter the cost. Patrick's tears glimmered under the studio lights as he whispered, "I want to be one of those people." For a long moment, silence filled the studio. The cameras captured not just words, but the sacred pause between them, the silence where emotion lives, where transformation takes root. When the session ended, the two men stood. Patrick pulled Traoré into an embrace, a gesture that was more than respect. It was gratitude, brotherhood, and an unspoken vow. The video would go on to be shared millions of times, hailed as one of the most emotional interactions of the year. Viewers describe it as a conversation that pierced the heart. A moment of truth and humanity. Proof that compassion is universal. For Patrick Dempsey, it was more than viral fame. It was a turning point, a reminder that even in a world obsessed with glamour and celebrity, the most unforgettable moments are born from truth, courage, and compassion. And for Ibrahim Traoré, it was yet another chance to remind the world that leadership is not about power, but about service, dignity, and the unwavering belief that freedom is worth every sacrifice. Together, their exchange became a living testament that when two worlds meet, when hearts open, and when truth is spoken without fear, the result is not just dialogue, it is transformation.